Hello, Shelley here again to show you some more of the Mayan crochet blanket motif. This time we're going to be doing rounds 13, it's this dark blue one here, so the last of our little V's, all the way out to this first of our wavy kind of rounds. So let's finish off those V's. Now if you're doing my coloured version, this is where you'd be fastening off your yarn from the round 12 and starting a new round with a standing front post stitch around one of these stitches up here. Choose a different one to where you finished off. But if you're continuing the same colour like me, we're going to start with a front post stitch around the front post stitch below. Then we're going to skip one stitch, and then 2 times we're going to do this little repeat, which is double crochet UK, single crochet US in the next stitch, then a front post treble UK, front post double US around the next stitch. So that's one little repeat. Do the same again, small stitch, and then the front post stitch. Right, now remember a little while back we did a stitch in the same stitch, we used the same stitch twice. Well, again we're going to do that here. So that stitch we just did a front post stitch around, we're going to do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in. Then we're going to go down to our front loop. This is the last time we'll be doing this. We'll be using this front loop twice and doing a treble UK, a double US. Whoops, in that front loop. Then we'll be doing a double crochet UK, single crochet US in the 3 stitches of the previous round. 1, 2, 3. Doing a stitch in that front loop left over. Then we're going to do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in this next stitch, and then we're going to use that same stitch again and do a front post stitch around that same stitch. And we're just going to finish off by doing this mini repeat twice. So a double crochet in the next stitch UK, single crochet US, a front post stitch around the next one, double crochet UK, single crochet US in the next stitch, and skip one stitch. And then we're back to the start. We're doing our front post stitch again. So you've done it all before, nothing new. It's the last fiddly piddly round. So you won't be doing any more of those stitches in the front loops anymore, or any more of the stitches in the same stitches. So the last one to concentrate, and then we'll be plain sailing. I'll do all those repeats and show you how to finish off this round and move on to the next one. Okay, my repeats are all done. I just need to join with a slip stitch to my first stitch, and we're off on the next round, round 14. So we start with a front post treble UK WS around the stitch below. Then 3 times we do this little repeat. So it's a treble UK WS in the next stitch, then a front post, so that's the little repeat. So a stitch in the stitch and a front post, that's twice, almost, and one more time. Okay. Now we do a treble UK WS in the next 3 stitches. And then 3 times we do this little repeat. So a front post stitch, a stitch in the next stitch. So that's our little repeat again. Front post in the next stitch, front post, oops, and in the next stitch. So that's our little repeat. Then we're back to the start, starting with the front post like we did here. So nice and easy. I'll do that all the way around and show you what happens next. Okay, all of my repeats of that round are now done. I just need to join with a slip stitch to my first front post stitch. And the next round is very similar. We just have one little difference, or two little differences really. All the stitches in this round are going to be half stitches. So we're starting with a half front post, half treble UK, half WS. And then we're doing this little repeat 3 times. A half stitch in the next stitch, then a half front post stitch. That's our little repeat. Half stitch, half front post. Half stitch, a half front post. And here's where it's slightly different from the previous round as well. We're going to do a half stitch in the next stitch. Then in the next one, the middle one of the 3, we're doing 3 stitches, 3 half stitches. 1, 2, oops, the yarn's stuck, 3, and then a half stitch in the next one. And our little repeat, half front post half, half in the next stitch, front post half, half in the next stitch, front post half, and a half in the next stitch. And then we're back to the beginning of our repeat again. So again, all half post stitches, we just have 3 stitches in the one in the very point, the middle one here. So I'll do that all the way around, and I'll show you how to finish this one off. Now this one's going to end differently to other ones, but I'll show you that when we get there. Okay, so all my repeats are done now. Now instead of joining with a slip stitch this time, this round here that we've just completed is actually this round here that you see sticking up with the V's on the top. Now if we just joined it with a slip stitch here where we are, it would be really, really visible. So what we're going to do is we're going to join it with an invisible join, and it's going to make it look like, I can actually see that's where I've done it here, but if you just look at it quickly you can see that there's just an unbroken line of V's along here. So it's not hard to do. If you've never done it before, I'm going to show you how. Alright, the first step is to cut your yarn. Don't join with a slip stitch, just cut your yarn. Okay, now all you need to do is pull the tail out like that. Okay, now you get your yarn needle and thread your yarn on. Now we're going to skip that front post stitch that we started with, and we're actually going to poke our needle underneath the 2 loops of the first stitch on its own in a stitch. Oops. And poke that through there and pull it not too tight. Then we're going to turn it around and we're going to poke our needle back in the same V that it came out of. So through that, but also if you have a look on the back, you can see that there's another loop here. It's called the, well, I call it the loop behind the V, because you've got your V shape on top and then you've got this extra next loop down here. Sometimes it's called the back bump or the third loop or lots of different things. But when you poke your needle in, you go through that one and underneath that one as well. I'm going to turn it back around so that you can see what happens. I'm just going to pull it gently until it's about the same size as our other loops. So it's taken the place of the V that was on the top of our first stitch. Okay, now we're going to just weave this in a little bit. We're not going to go nuts weaving it in properly, but just to secure it, I'm just going to weave it in behind a few stitches. And have a look at it, make sure it's looking okay. So that's it there. So it's a little bit loose. You can see it's a little bit longer than the others. So I'm just going to pull it a little bit tighter. Then I'm going to take that off and leave that. We're not going to weave the rest of that in until we've done the next round, because leaving it loose just gives you a little bit to play with. As we work our next stitches, it might get a little bit loose or a bit tight, but leaving it so that it's easy to adjust now will make it easier later. Okay, so there we have it. That's our invisible join. If you look really closely, you can see it's a little bit different. You've got a couple of little extra bits here, but overall, when the next round is done, you will not be able to see where that is. Okay, so now it's time to start our next round, and we are going to be doing, if you're changing colours, following my colour plan, this is where you attach your next colour. We're going to use a standing stitch. So you attach your yarn to your hook with a slip knot, however you like to do a slip knot. And on this round, we're not working into any of the stitches. Normally you would work in. We're going to work every single stitch into that loop behind the V. It's exactly the same as what you normally do, it's just a different place to pop your hook. And it's because we did half stitches in the previous round, it's really quite easy to do. Now, we're going to attach our yarn, not to the loop behind V where we just did our stitch, just finished off. We're going to choose a different one. And all the stitches in this round are trebles UK or doubles US. And we need to find this long straight stitch that's not part of any of the V's, this line of front post stitches. One of those is where we're going to attach our yarn to the loop behind the V on the back. So as you can see, I've got my finger here on where the slip knot is. If you don't do that, you're going to lose your stitch. Okay, so pull a loop to the front, yarn over through 2, and this is where you can let go. Then yarn over through 2. Then we have a proper stitch straight up. Don't worry about this hole being slightly larger than a normal stitch. It's completely fine. Now all we're doing is a treble UK or a double US in every stitch around. So I will do that all the way around and show you what to do at the end of this one. Okay, so my repeats are all done. I just need to join with a slip stitch to my first stitch with that standing stitch. Now I've got a little tip here. When you put your yarn around, see how I'm putting it in front of that little knot? If you put it behind, then it means that the knot sort of sticks up on top. But if you put it in front, like that, pull it through, that knot from our slip stitch gets hidden on the back. Alright, so now we're up to the round 17. Now this one is going to seem a little bit counterintuitive, but it's all for a purpose, as I will explain. So we're going to start off with chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch. Then we're going to do 4 trebles UK doubles US in that same stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're not going to skip any stitches. Usually when you chain 1 you might be used to skipping a stitch. We're not skipping a stitch. We're going to do a treble UK WS in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Now we are going to skip a stitch, but we're not doing any chain. And we're going to skip a stitch and do a double treble UK. Sorry, we're actually going to do 3 double treble UKs or triples US in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3. It's in one stitch. We need to do 3 in the next stitch as well. 1, 2, 3. Now we're not going to chain 1, but we are going to skip a stitch. So skip the next stitch and do a treble UK WS in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then we're going to chain 1. we're not skipping any stitches, and in the next stitch we are going to do 5 trebles UK, doubles US. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're back to where we started again. So what we're doing, I'll just do the next couple of stitches. So we're going to chain 1, and in the next 2 stitches we are going to do a treble UK WS. So that's our repeat. We've got 5 stitches with 1 chain space either side and 2 stitches in the next 2 stitches either side. And then after that, after those 2 stitches, we skip 1 and do 3 doubles UK, triples US in the next 2 stitches. Now this round is going to be quite ruffled because there's going to be a lot of stitches, but the next round, round 18, is going to, where some magic is going to happen, and it'll all be nice and flat again. Now a little tip for you, these 5 stitches should be in the stitch, oh, I don't know what I've done there. Oh, that's my tail. Sorry, pardon me. I didn't weave that in properly. Okay, so I remember a couple of rounds back we did 3 stitches in the same stitch. 1, 2, 3. These 5 stitches are going to be in the stitch that's in the loop behind V of the middle stitch when you get to the points. So they're going to be right on the point. And they're also going to be above the long straight coming up from one of the rays. They're going to be here and here. Okay, that's where you're going to have your 5 stitches. So at the very point and at the tip of these rays is where you're going to have the 5 stitches in one. So if you make sure you do that all the way around, you should have no problems at all. So I'll continue around, do all those repeats and show you how to finish off this round. Okay, so my repeats are all done. I've finished with 2 stitches. And now I need to chain 1 and join with a slip stitch to my first stitch, which is this one here. Now if you're following my changing colours plan, this is where you'd fasten off this colour and start a new one. There we go, that is the end of round 17. And as you can see, it is very, very ruffled, but really, don't worry, because the very next round we're going to magically fix that up. So there you go, rounds 13 to 17 of the Mayan crochet motif. I will see you soon with the next lot of videos.